Hello again. So my name is Rebecca. I'm a fermentation instructor. I teach classes like kombucha, dairy kefir, so milk kefir, and kraut. I also do some veggies and I've done water kefir. Those are all fermented foods and I teach on all of them. I will be doing a demonstration and giving you some information on kefir. It is a very simple process and it's one of the quickest and easiest ferments to do. To get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what kefir is, and then we'll get into how to make it. So, let's see here. So, this is milk kefir. This is what it looks like. So what it is it's fermented milk. So fermented dairy. Now, it has been preserved by introducing what are called kefir grains into the milk. Kefir grains are tiny rubbery bits of bacteria and yeast. They resemble cottage cheese and they have a texture of like a gummy bear. This is what the grains look like. So this is called a culture. It's live bacteria and yeast. You can see it looks like cottage cheese, kind of a gummy bear consistency. So that's what you introduce into the milk. Like I said, kefir is preserved milk. This process has been around for, I don't even know, hundreds, thousands of years. I don't think anyone's been able to trace back to where it originated from, but it was originally created as a process to preserve milk before refrigeration. It's a very safe process. When I started, I was a little bit nervous thinking of leaving dairy on my counter and introducing bacteria to it. But the good bacteria crowds out any of the bad bacteria, and it actually is preserving your milk. So it's a very safe process. Kefir is very high in B vitamins, folate, magnesium, has some biotin in it, and calcium. It has between 40 and 50 strains of good bacteria and yeast. It is truly a superfood. There is actually no other food on our planet that has as much good bacteria and yeast as kefir does. Most probiotics will have 1 to 3 strains of yeast. I saw at the grocery store at Fresh Time the other day, they have some probiotic supplements that had, looked like 20 strains. I love kefir because it has that many strains, a lot of which are found in our probiotic supplements. For those of you who don't know what a probiotic supplement is, it is a supplement full of good bacteria and yeast, which helps our gut, which in turn helps our whole body. I prefer to get my probiotics from good bacteria and yeast in food. It's one of the most efficient and inexpensive ways to get probiotics, good bacteria and yeast, into our systems. A cool thing about getting your probiotics from food is that the food protects the good bacteria and yeast. So as you eat it or drink it, it goes through your digestive system. It protects it from the heat and the acids in your stomach, and it makes it the whole way through your digestive system, all the way out. So sometimes with a probiotic supplement, you aren't always guaranteed to have it make it through your whole digestive tract, and you definitely want it to. I have heard different things on this, but kefir is supposed to colonize your gut. So it's literally setting up shop of good bacteria in your gut that will live there, which makes you healthier. One of the reasons as well that I eat kefir is the good bacteria and yeast, keeping your body healthy, keeping your gut healthy, helps decrease inflammation in your body. And that's one of the things that I focus on every day. All right, so let's get started. How you make it? Super simple. If you can dump milk into a jar, you know how to make kefir. We always start with the kefir grains, which are little tiny bits of bacteria and yeast, as I said. So what you want to do is take a jar. I like to use, glass jars are the best. for fermentation, any kind of fermentation. I like to use a wide mouth quart jar. You can really use any size jar, but I go through about 1 quart a day for the family. So wide mouth is good because it allows the bacteria to spread around. You can use a smaller mouth jar, but you'll just kind of have to shake that jar throughout the day so the bacteria moves around and properly ferments the milk. What we do is take, you don't have to be super specific about this. I would say 2 teaspoons is fine of the grains. Plop it in the jar. Then what you're going to do is take milk. It's recommended to use whole milk. You do not have to use whole milk. You can use 1%, 2%. I would skip skim. The grains thrive on the lactose and they thrive in more of a, with the fats. They don't do so well in the skim milk. The lower you go in fat, the thinner it will be. I prefer my kefir creamy, and also I try not to eat too much fat during the day, and the little fat that's in there is not terribly bad for you. So I don't really worry about that. So what we do, go ahead, take the whole milk. I just grabbed this from the grocery store. I've used all different kinds. Do not, in my opinion, well, don't use organic milk. I would love to use organic milk. If any of you can find organic milk that is not ultra pasteurized, that would be awesome. Let me know. But organic milk is typically ultra pasteurized so that it lasts longer in the stores, and the kefir grains don't do well in ultra pasteurized milk. You could also use goat's milk, and you could use unpasteurized milk. So you're filling it up to there, basically up to where the jar curves. And like I said, I use whole milk. Then what you're doing, take a cap. Doesn't have to be a metal cap, but I started using that. You'll have to excuse my cat in the background. Kind of noisy. Okay, so I just put the lid on. I also got these. So I use the metal lids. I didn't go out and buy anything special until the metal lids started to rust. So then I switched to the plastic lids. You can get any of these things, any of these supplies at a grocery store or a store like Menards or Fleet Farm. So next what you do, you just leave it sit. So kefir grains, about 2 teaspoons, fill it with milk of your choice, just not ultra pasteurized, up to where it curves, cap it. What's gonna happen next is just patience and waiting. You leave this on your counter for 24 hours. So in 24 hours, it will ferment into what is called kefir. So it's actually preserving your milk and loading it with probiotics, so good bacteria and yeast. In summer, it will ferment a little faster. In winter, it'll ferment a little slower. You'll notice that. It can be difficult to ferment in winter, so what I recommend is just keep it in the warmest area of your house. So let's say 24 hours has passed. So the milk, the grains that are capped in this wide mouth jar have been sitting for 24 hours, so time lapse. This is what happens. You will see, you can get a glimpse, there starts to be some bubbles. What that is whey. So there'll start to be some separation. If you leave this longer than 24 hours, the whole bottom will fill with whey. So it's, you've heard of curds and whey, that's what's happening. This process is similar to cheese, sour cream, it's lactic acid fermentation. So and you can kind of see, I'll open it up. See, it's almost a little bit gelatinous is the word I would use. It smells yeasty. That's how you want it to smell. What this tastes like is a drinkable Greek yogurt. That's the closest that I can say in terms of taste. So what I like to do is take my favorite spatula, give it a stir. So we're stirring the little bit of whey in with the milk. You can kind of see the little grains around there. And this just gets rid of that gelatinous texture. The texture after you stir it is like a thick, drinkable Greek yogurt. It's not lumpy or anything like that. Then what you do, put a strainer over a measuring cup or a bowl, and you dump it. I get kefir everywhere, don't worry about it. You want to have a clean environment, you want to have clean hands, clean tools. You don't need to have a completely sterile environment. If you're using things like Clorox wipes, cleaning wipes, hand sanitizer, keep those things away from your kefir grains and your kefir. That's going to be counterintuitive to what you're trying to accomplish, which is to create more good bacteria and yeast. So what I do then is slowly strain the kefir through the strainer so that the grains are left. Now, it doesn't need to be complete, like you don't have to get all the kefir off of them. The kefir actually on the grains protects the grains. Never rinse your kefir grains. You could run a little milk over them, that's fine, but you don't need to do that. You can just take these, so it's a little more. What happens is they grow, the kefir grains multiply, especially when it's warm. You could get up to triple the amount of grains. These are alive, so they multiply. This amount, I don't know, is maybe a teaspoon more. That's fine. What you do is it's a cycle. You put those grains into a jar and you fill that with milk. So you're starting over. Same thing. Making kefir is a cycle. Then cap it. This will stay on your counter for 24 hours. When you do this on your own, it's going to take about 3 minutes a day. I do it in the mornings, and then I make smoothies with it. So after you strained out your kefir grains, put them in another jar filled with milk. I take the strainer out. I put the kefir, which as you can see is nice and thick and creamy, ready to eat if you want. It's warm, so usually I'm grabbing from the fridge a cold one that I had from the day before. Then what I do is just pour it right back into the jar that it was in. And then cap it. I stick this in the fridge if I'm for some reason out of kefir. I will put this in a smoothie with some ice cubes. I do not drink it warm. I just don't care for that. Warm dairy is not that tasty. All right, so I will show you some of my favorite things to do with kefir. The thing I do every single day is I start my day with a smoothie. I like to do that because I find that it's a great way to start my day. I get a lot of key nutrients. I'm able to put a lot of good things into my smoothie that I'll show you that are very healthy. And I figure that if I start my day healthy, whatever happens the rest of the day, whatever else I eat or drink, at least I started the day on a good note. So, smoothies. Some people drink it plain. I do not care for it plain. So a lot of people I hear, oh, I don't like it. It's plain. It doesn't taste very good. Well, drinkable Greek yogurt, in my opinion, doesn't taste very, very good. So I never eat it plain. What I like to do is I'll put it in a smoothie cup. I have this magic bullet here. Any sort of blender will work well. So what I do is I put about, I don't know, a little bit over half kefir into a cup. I'll add half a banana. I like to put fruit in it. You can use canned fruit, fresh fruit. I get this, the kids love it, and it's just super easy. I don't have to cut up a mango. The juice is kind of good in the smoothie, gives it a little sweetness. Then I add a prebiotic. So, what's a prebiotic? These things here. So, example, berries. So I like to add powder. Just try this one, really high in vitamin C. Goji berry powder, that's a new one for me. So berries are prebiotics. Prebiotics feed the good bacteria. So regardless if you're eating a fermented food or you're taking a probiotic supplement, it's great to eat a prebiotic with the probiotic supplement or food. The reason for that is the good bacteria eats the prebiotic. Prebiotics are fiber, but not all fiber is a prebiotic. So examples would be, and you can just look this up online, there's a ton. Examples would be berries, fresh berries, powdered berries. I like to add a teaspoon or a tablespoon, depending on how I'm feeling, of flaxseed. I just get ground flax meal from Woodman's, It's pretty tasteless and it adds a lot of vitamins, nutrients, and fiber. So I like to add fruit, banana, and prebiotics in the form of berries or fiber. I find smoothies are the easiest way to incorporate kefir into your diet every day and in a tasty way. So we start the day with that. I eat it, my husband eats it, sometimes the kids eat it. Very, very tasty. If you're avoiding sugar, I've had people add a little sweetness with monk fruit. You can just not put as sweet of things in it, maybe just the kefir and a couple berries or just a spoonful of this. Still tastes pretty good, just not as much sugar. A lot of people are scared of dairy or just avoid dairy. If you're a vegan and you avoid dairy because of that, this type of kefir, it's not for you. And that's fine. I totally understand those reasons. A lot of people do avoid dairy because they're lactose intolerant. So I have had actually a lot of students who are lactose intolerant who do awesome on kefir and are able to heal their guts. So lactose intolerant students, people with IBS, sensitive to dairy, usually do pretty well on kefir. The reason for that is the bacteria eats out the lactose. So you're left with an almost lactose-free beverage. So it's not the same, it totally changes the food. So it changes the milk almost into just a whole nother food. It's very healing for the gut. It has a lot of magnesium in it, which I love, which I find calming to my nervous system. So it's a great way to start out the day. And like I said, a lot of lactose intolerant students do very well with it. I would start easy. Start with 1/4 of a cup a day. It's very potent, very high in good bacteria and yeast. So that could lead to some digestive distress, we'll call it. So you can always reel back or add more. It took me about a month to get used to it. About 1/4 of a cup a day. I would put a little honey in it after a meal, after my dinner. And my body quickly got used to it. Now I can eat any amount of kefir. It doesn't bother me. Your body will tell you if it's too much. Just know that. Your body, your digestive system will let you know. So the other thing I love to do with kefir, I guess here's a couple options. You can make popsicles. So I blend kefir, banana, berries, and freeze it in those popsicle molds. The kids love that. Easy way to get kefir into kids. Another thing you can do, make dip. You can, you don't have to add sweetness to kefir. You can actually add things like garlic, dill. For dips, I do dill, garlic powder, and then I do a little salt and pepper. So how to make dip is you're putting a coffee filter into a strainer, putting it over the measuring cup or a bowl. Then you're dumping the kefir into that. Then I cover it just with a plate, stick it in the fridge for 24 hours. What that does is it allows the whey to drain through the coffee filter and it leaves the kefir to get really thick. So you get a dip consistency. So the next day you just kind of plop it out. It'll be a nice thick creamy consistency like dip or like the consistency of sour cream. Then you can add in whatever spices you want. Just stir it up. We eat it with veggies, chips, crackers. Really, most people cannot tell the difference between kefir dip and any regular dip. You can also use the dip without any spices as a sour cream alternative. That's what we do a lot with it. Another thing I wanted to say, I have made, and I get this question a lot, can you make kefir with other milks? So almond milk, coconut milk, nut milks of any kind, oat milk. So here's the thing. My opinion is it doesn't work very well. That's been my experience. I have gotten it to work. It's hard on the grains. The grains want lactose. They eat lactose. They can eat sugar, but it's a little bit more challenging to keep them alive and they don't like to grow. Using other milks is also really thin and it's just not very appetizing in my opinion. So if you really want to use other milks, my recommendation would be to buy kefir made with almond milk or something like that from the store, or maybe it's just not the ferment for you. But feel free to try it if anybody is really needing to try that or wants to try it, I'm happy to help. I've helped people do it. To go through just a brief recap here, what you're doing is you're using kefir grains, you're putting them in a wide mouth jar, you're filling that wide mouth jar with milk, you're capping it, and then you're leaving it on your counter for 24 hours. After that, what you want to do, make sure it's starting to separate. You'll see the whey, you'll see that it's kind of jiggly. You put a strainer over a measuring cup or bowl, and you go ahead and you strain it through. You strain out the grains, put them in another jar, and then you go ahead and pour that with milk, put a cap on. It's a cycle. You leave it on your counter for 24 hours. This that was strained through, you go ahead and put back in the jar. That can go in the fridge. If you want to drink it right away, feel free. Now, the last thing I'd like to say is storage. So how to store grains. So like I said, in summer, they're gonna multiply a lot. You're gonna get an excess of grains. They're alive, so you need to keep them fed. What you do to keep them fed is to put them in a jar, just the regular jar, fill it up with milk, and keep it in your fridge. You can keep that in your fridge for up to 2 weeks, I would say, and then you'd have to change out the milk. Fermentation slows down so much in the fridge, so you don't have to change it every day. The milk, or the grains, will slowly eat the sugar and lactose out of the milk, and that's how they'll stay alive in your fridge. So that's grain storage, and that's the process. So let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you're excited to try it. So signing off.